We turn now to a New York Times article raising eyebrows because of its title. Take a look. Here's a screenshot of when the article originally appeared on its website on January 11th. It reads, "Palestinians set up camps in Israeli-occupied West Bank," but later that evening, that title changed. The new one reads, "Palestinians set up tents where Israel plans homes." This was all captured by a website called newsdiffs.org. We reached out to the New York Times asking why the change of title, but we haven't gotten a response yet. The story is about how 200 Palestinians are setting up tents in an Israeli-occupied West Bank territory called E1. The group has announced they plan on establishing a village there called Bab al-Shams. For more, I'm joined now by Ayman Al-Sayed, co-founder of Existence is Resistance. Hi there, Ayman.
Hello.
So is this simply a mistake made by the New York Times for reasons of space, or do you think it's something more?
I don't believe it's based on space and editing. I believe it's a clear bias against the Palestinians. The New York Times has a history of being biased towards the Palestinians and being in support of Israel. I mean, this area that Israel has called Eid 1 is on Palestinian private property in the West Bank. Israel is planning on building illegal settlements on this land. Internationally, the whole world recognizes the West Bank as occupied territory occupied by Israel. The New York Times went ahead and changed the headline 6 hours after originally putting it up, and it shows there's a clear bias towards the Palestinians and in favor of Israel.
All right, Ayman, I do want to be fair and mention that the term Israeli occupied, the term that was used in that title and then removed, that is used in the actual body of the article. So does that negate these accusations of a bias, or what do you think?
I don't think it negates the bias, because the headline is what attracts people to read the article. It's what stands out. It's the headline. It's a headliner. So, and it's not just this issue. The New York Times has a troubling history of being biased. For example, their former borough chief, Ethan Broner, his son served in the Israeli Defense Forces, in the Israeli army, which was actively occupying Palestinian lands, bombing the Gaza Strip, shooting at human rights activists in the West Bank. The borough chief, his son, was in the IDF while he was a borough chief in Jerusalem. That's a major conflict of interest that the New York Times refused to change his assignment, at least temporarily, until his son is out of the army. They refused to do that. How can you be objective when your son is in the army that's occupying Palestinian land and territory and killing Palestinians on a daily basis? How can he be the borough chief in Jerusalem with this conflict of interest?
Right, that case that you refer to, New York Times gotten a lot of heat because of that. Do you think it's taken adequate steps since then to remedy that?
Not at all, as we saw with this recent change in the headline, and they refused to move Ethan Broner's position, at least temporarily. The other thing I'd like to point out is that the New York Times office in Jerusalem is actually built on a Palestinian home of Palestinians who were kicked out of their homes in 1948 in Jerusalem. That house that the New York Times purchased in 1984 in West Jerusalem belonged to the Karmi family. They're a Palestinian family that lived in Jerusalem before they were expelled by Israeli terrorist militias in 1948. So they purchased a house that's built on top of Palestinian homes, and they've acknowledged this. It's not a hidden information. They've acknowledged that they purchased it. They tried to, it's ambiguous what their response has been. They tried to say, we purchased the house from whoever sold it to us, but they acknowledge that it was Palestinian and that that Palestinians who owned it should have the right to determine who owns that house, who builds on top of the original house, and they're still occupying this house. So there's a lot of conflict of interest with the New York Times when it comes to Palestine. They're occupying a Palestinian home. Their former borough chief's son was served in Israeli forces while he was a borough chief, and now with this headline. And as well, if you read the New York Times on a daily basis, they just take the Israeli statements as fact. When Israel bombs the area and says, oh, we killed 10 terrorists, the New York Times just prints it as a fact. It doesn't say allegedly, or it doesn't say Israel calls them terrorists. It just says Israel bombed 10 militants, killed 10 militants, without having reporters on the ground in Gaza to actually see if it's factual or not, without having reporters in the West Bank. The majority of the reporters for the New York Times are stationed in Tel Aviv and in Israeli areas in Jerusalem. So they're not objective at all when it comes to reporting the occupation of Palestine.
All right, so clearly you see the New York Times as biased when it comes to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Do you think that they're unique in that?
No, they're not unique in that. Them, along with other newspapers based in New York and newspapers in the United States, have a major bias when it comes to our foreign policy in Palestine as well as in other countries, whether it's Iraq, Syria, Afghanistan, Pakistan. There's a major bias where our newspapers are not being objective. We're just siding with whatever the government says. Journalism is supposed to be objective. You cover a story, you hear both sides, and you report the facts. You don't report the one side as facts and ignore the other side. And this is a major problem going on, and it's misinforming our fellow citizens in this country. I would like to, make it related to the topic you were talking about before with Hurricane Sandy. We give Israel billions of dollars yearly, and we're not able to pass a bill to give money to our fellow citizens in New York and New Jersey who were affected by Hurricane Sandy, who've lost their home and still have no power. Why is it that we can't provide help to our own people, but we're giving billions to Israel? And this is a major problem, and I believe the media plays a part in this misinformation of misinforming Americans about the foreign policy and our support of Israel, and making it look like it's necessary for our security, that we have to support the occupation of Palestine. And it's not necessary.
All right, Ayman. Clear. We can definitely keep this conversation going, but we are unfortunately out of time. Really appreciate you, though, coming on the show. That was Ayman Al-Sayed, a co-founder of Existence is Resistance.